Aside from being the second largest planet in our solar system and the sixth planetary body from the Sun, how many more interesting facts are worth learning about Saturn? Spoiler alert, there are much more than you think. So join us in today's video as we explore the beautiful bright world of this gas giant and tell you how things are done up there. Saturn came alive some 4.5 billion years ago, at about the same time when Earth and other planets within our solar system were taking shape. In theory, scientists believe this glowing planetary body was formed from the swirling of a cloud of dust and gas known as the solar nebula. But it wasn't until 4 billion years ago that it drifted into its current position in the outer solar system right next to Jupiter. Humanity's first knowledge of Saturn came as far back as the ancient times, long before telescopes were invented. However, astronomers were able to sight the planet with unaided human eyes due to its enormous size and brightness. The very first sighting of this giant was done by ancient Romans, who named it after their god of harvest, wealth and time. But legendary Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei was the first human to see Saturn through the eyes of a telescope. Like Jupiter, Saturn is largely made of hydrogen and helium, basically the two elements that make up our Sun and 99% of known matter in our universe. Saturn has a radius of 58,232 kilometres, 36,184 miles, meaning it is 9 times wider than Earth. For perspective, if Earth were the size of a nickel, Saturn would be the size of a volleyball. In terms of distance, Saturn is placed at an average distance of 1.4 billion kilometres, 886 million miles away from Earth, and 1.47 billion kilometres away from the Sun. Based on these figures, it takes about 1 hour and 20 minutes for light to travel from the Sun to Saturn. In comparison, it takes only 8 minutes and 20 seconds for sunlight to reach the Earth's surface. As a gas giant, Saturn doesn't have a solid surface. Instead, it contains metals like iron and nickel at its core. However, the core itself is enclosed in liquid metallic hydrogen and submerged inside an extra layer of liquid hydrogen. Of all the planets within our solar system, Saturn has the least density. In fact, its average density is less than that of water. This means that Saturn would float like an inflated ball if thrown into a gigantic bathtub. Due to its density, it's literally impossible to land or stand on this gas giant. It is perhaps even more difficult to travel through its atmosphere without being hurt. Saturn is covered with faint clouds that look more like jet streams or storms. And speaking about storms, Saturn's upper atmosphere experiences strong winds of up to 1,600 feet per second, 500 meters per second, in the equatorial region. That's nearly 5 times stronger than the strongest hurricane-force winds we've had here on Earth. At the top of the clouds, Saturn's temperature is believed to be around minus 170 degrees Celsius, minus 274 degrees Fahrenheit. But as you move further down towards the planet's core, the temperature is likely to rise to about 12,000 degrees Celsius, 21,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This means Saturn radiates nearly twice as much energy in visible and infrared light that it absorbs from sunlight. Also, the pressure around this region is also very intense, such that it squeezes gas into liquid. Of course, it is practically impossible to live or fly in these conditions. The extreme pressures and temperature levels at the core of the planet would cause huge damage to anyone or anything that is unlucky enough to make its way down there. To be clear, any spacecraft that attempts to dive into it would most likely melt and vaporize. This scenario played out in 2017 when NASA's space probe Cassini took the death plunge into Saturn after almost 2 decades of exploring the glowing gas giant from close range. During this mission, the iconic spacecraft orbited Saturn 294 times before diving into the deadly atmosphere of Saturn on the 15th of September 2017. But thankfully, Cassini has helped us gather tons and tons of data about Saturn before plunging to its death. Part of the information provided by Cassini helps scientists learn more about the size and composition of Saturn. The spacecraft also gave us deep insight into the rings that circle around this gas giant. It is widely believed that these rings are small chunks of comets, asteroids, or shattered moons that travelled too close to Saturn and were torn apart by its strong gravitational force. Some fragments are as small as dust-sized icy grains, while some others are as big as a standard house. And then a few of them are gigantic, about the size of a regular mountain on Earth. The interesting thing about Saturn's rings is that each ring travels at a different speed around the planet. But overall, the entire ring system on Saturn extends as far as 282,000 kilometres, 175,000 miles away from where the planet is located, with the vertical height reaching about 30 feet or 10 metres on the main rings. Saturn's rings are named alphabetically according to the sequence in which they were discovered. In all, Saturn has 7 distinctive rings. The main rings include A, B and C. These 3 were the very first rings to be discovered and easier to spot than the other rings. The next ring, D, is extremely dim and close to Saturn. The E ring is the largest and furthest Saturn ring, lying around 1 million kilometres, 621,370 miles away from the planet. The F ring consists of many narrow and bright rings. And finally, there's the faint G ring. Saturn has a total of 53 named and confirmed moons, including Titan, a giant moon equivalent to the size of a sports arena. Other Saturn moons include Enceladus, Mimas, Dione, Iapetus, Prometheus, Rhea and Phoebe. Furthermore, Saturn has 29 additional provisional moons still awaiting confirmation. In total, Saturn potentially has 82 moons. According to the fact sheets, Saturn has the second shortest day in our solar system. A typical day on the planet is about 10.7 hours long. Meanwhile, a year on Saturn is equivalent to 10,756 Earth days, or 29.4 Earth years. Saturn is tilted 26.73 degrees with respect to its orbit around the Sun, which is similar to Earth's 23.5 degree tilt. Saturn's magnetic field is smaller than Jupiter's, but don't even dare to underestimate it for a second because it's 578 times more powerful than Earth's magnetic field. Interestingly, auroras occur on Saturn just like we have them on Earth, but the only difference being that the auroras on Saturn are caused by the combination of particles ejected from the planet's moons and the rapid rotation rate of its magnetic field. Recently, NASA found signs of extraterrestrial life in the plumes of Saturn's moon Enceladus. In the research carried out by the legendary Cassini spacecraft, scientists discovered a large amount of methane and a relatively high concentration of dihydrogen, as well as carbon dioxide molecules on the moon. Currently, scientists are unable to explain this phenomenon by any known geochemical process. But many theorists have suggested that these signs could mean that Earth-like microbes exist on the planet. This suggestion is further encouraged by the fact that scientists already found a subsurface ocean enveloped in a layer of ice on Enceladus, which provides suitable climate conditions for simple life to exist. Also, the combination of mathematical models, geochemistry, and microbial ecology has allowed scientists to further probe the data provided by Cassini. This allowed scientists to draw comparisons between the hydrothermal vents on Earth's ocean floor and the plumes on Enceladus. In the end, they reached a conclusion that Cassini's data is consistent with microbial hydrothermal vent activity, or with some other processes that doesn't involve life forms. But in any case, they're far different from the ones that occur here on Earth. Additionally, Saturn itself is known to be a very hostile environment and doesn't support any form of life as we know it here on Earth. So it's impossible to even dream of living on this big, colourful gas giant called Saturn, at least for the time being.